How Ganeshtish for letting me share the short story about my family. The way I was told by my Nani, Mona Jackson, from Haida Heidelberg, and then Cake, Alaska. She told me this story about how our people had one time gone and prepared for a really long voyage. And it took them a long time to prepare all the foods that they would need. They knew they were going to be gone for a long time. And so they prepared all the food, all the dry fish, all the grease, all the berries. They prepared the canoe. They prepared their clothing. Everything was taken care of. Everything was thought about. And everything was made ready. And when they were ready to go and they loaded up the canoe, they experienced some hardships. Things weren't right. And so they unpacked everything. And they settled back in for a bit. And they went through everything again. And they prepared again. They did it all again. Because to go on such a long journey meant that they had to have everything prepared and everything thought about and everything ready. They were taking their families, their most precious cargo, so they had to be sure that everything was right. So they took that time and they watched the signals and they launched. And they went on their journey. They were heading north. And in the midst of their journey, a fog settled down on them. And this fog would not lift. They didn't know where they were. They could not tell if they were near land or if they were far out into the ocean. And they drifted and they drifted. They looked and listened for the sound of birds, for the smell of the islands, for land. Nothing. The fog just sat upon them. Soon they began to worry, and they began to wonder what they would do as their supplies started to run short. And as my non told me, things became very dire. They became worried. All of the preparations, all of the things that they did to make sure everything would go right, this was not something that they could control. They had put aside enough food to last in case something happened. They were beginning to run short. What were they going to do? All of their precious cargo, their loved ones, looking forward to where they were going. And they were beginning to become desperate. When all of a sudden, the skipper, the back of the canoe, he heard something go by him. Quiet. Listen. Again, heard something. He passed the message up to the person in front of him. Tell them to put some berries in water, make sweet juice, put it on the bow of the canoe, quietly. The message passed almost silently through the canoe. The front row received the news, the instructions, and they made a bowl, water, some berries in it to sweeten it. They put it on the bow. They sat, continuing to drift quietly. Everyone heard it. There it is again. And a little hummingbird flew to the bow of the canoe and sat, exhausted, drinking that sweet water, that sweet nectar. No one moved. Every eye intently on this little being who came out of the fog at their most desperate hour. And then, as soon as he'd arrived, he was gone. No one moved. They sat quietly under the fog. There he is again. There he is. He came right back, and he sat on the bow of the canoe and drank some more of that sweet nectar they had made for him. And he flew back around the head of the skipper and off into the direction. And the skipper said, "Paddle deep. Dig your paddles deep. Paddle quiet. We must hear him." And so they placed their paddles in the ocean, digging deeply along the side of the canoe. This helped them to move quieter and also to be careful in the event that they might come upon rocks or upon land and damage their canoe. So they were very expertly following that duck duck dia, the hummingbird. They stopped. The fog still sat upon them. They waited. There he is. Quiet. He came back to the front of the boat, to the front of the canoe, sat down. He had some more of that sweet water. And again he took off. And they paddled deeply, following him. And slowly, after how many days, they don't know how many days, it was as if the fog began to be lifted off of them. And they could see this land. They could see this place. And it was so beautiful. Was this heaven? Had the hummingbird saved them and brought them to heaven? This is what they thought. This is what they felt when they came up from Haida into what is now known as Alaska. They didn't know. They did not know if they were coming into the land of spirits. And this is how our family was told about the journey that our ancestors went on, and about how our hummingbird saved our families, saved us. And from that day forward, we have been the hummingbird people. Chich Kitne, and a hummingbird is our crest. How Thank you for letting me share this story.